We must make sure that Russia does not have economic opportunities to go on with the war, because unfortunately, otherwise they will always aspire to continue the warfare. So they must lose any motivation or wish to expand further. So it's important not to forget about the sanctions, not to make it possible for them to circumvent the functions and find loopholes, because so far, unfortunately, this is what is happening.
So thank you so much for having me here to speak to you, Mrs. Zelenska. It's a real honour to be here. And I know you have a lot of things on at the moment, to say the least. And thank you for having me to your First Lady Summit this week. It was really, really interesting to see. First of all, I wanted to ask you about the role of the First Lady. In a normal circumstance, the First Lady is about promoting charities and good works and a sort of link with the community, or being at your husband's side during international events. But war changes everything, doesn't it? So what do you think is the role of the First Lady in the time of war?
Attributes to all of these activities that you have listed this sense of something tragic, something heavy, but anyway, you have to do that. And all humanitarian aspects that I dealt with before the beginning onset of the full-scale invasion, they are still on my agenda. But in addition to that, I have to focus on the projects that are linked to that we help our people to live with consequences of the war. So I have created the Olena Zelenska Foundation as a response to the challenges that the war has additionally reason. And that is why there is more burden, emotional burden or pressure. I feel responsibility for everything, for everyone. And this feeling, this experience, that's something that never lets me relax or breathe freely, unfortunately.
No, it must be something you carry with you every second of every day, this responsibility. So the Summit of First Ladies, it's the fifth one that's been organised. How is it different from previous summits that you've organised?
We on purpose try to develop, to ensure provide for some development. Of course, this one is different from previous ones. We take different topics and we expanded the range of invitees. And this time we focused on a very extensive and important topic, the topic of education. So the summit took 2 days, not just 1 day as previously. And we had more side events. We had lots of visits from our guests, including Nobel Prize winners, professors, researchers, academics, and they visited universities, Ukrainian universities. They had a chance to talk to students, and our students had the chance to hear them. And the teachers who attended the summit coming from different parts of the world, they participated in discussion panels, they visited Ukrainian schools, they conducted lessons for Ukrainian children, participated in the workshop together with Ukrainian colleagues. So we had a lot of side events, a lot of interesting events. It was busy. And I believe that further on, we can hardly plan for less than 2 days.
And the summit came at the end of a series of very severe attacks on Kiev. Did you fear at some point that some of your people you invited would be unable to come, that the air raids would make it more difficult, or maybe they would cancel?
Yes, definitely. We always face this risk. And there were horrible attacks on the eve of the summit, so we were apprehensive that some of the guests obviously could change their mind and not come. However, the more so, I am grateful to everyone who did come, who was not intimidated and became part of the summit. Another difference of the summit, how it's different from previous ones, that's that on the both days we had to take breaks because of air raid alerts. So together with the guests, we had to go down to the shelter. In previous years, we were kind of lucky, and we had those events without air raid alerts, but this time, unfortunately, everyone could experience this vibe or the rhythm, the pace of Ukrainian life, where any event may be halted and we need to go down to the shelter, and you never know how soon we would be able to reconvene. We had that experience.
No, one of the things I've spent a lot of time talking to Ukrainian people about their lives, and one of the things they've said to me is they can't plan anything. You can't go to the cinema. The film may stop, may start, may stop. You can't plan your birthday party. That is one of the things that all your life is on hold. Do you feel that in your life too?
All of us, we feel that we are living in the same conditions, all of us, and this is what is ongoing. One can never be sure that an event or a meeting will continue without interruptions. Especially, it is sad when kids go to school in the morning and then they have to spend the day in the bomb shelter. And of course, you can hardly expect that these lessons will be conducted in a full-fledged way. But we try to plan our agendas, taking into account possible delays or pauses, interruptions. Unfortunately, we had to develop these logistic skills, and the world basically learned the skill of living online during COVID pandemic. So now we also have to move a lot of meetings online so that we can be sure that there are no interruptions. We have to be flexible, right?
It's a very unusual situation to be somebody who marries someone who then goes on to a very high-ranking position. Do you find that it's nice that these other First Ladies understand your situation? It's quite an exclusive club of people who didn't necessarily expect to be thrown onto the world stage. Do you find you get support messages from people and you feel a solidarity with them?
Definitely, 100%. All of them demonstrated their solidarity immediately after the onset of the horrible invasion in the first days, first hours. And we talk to each other a lot. And this summit, by the way, makes it possible for us to communicate beyond those formal meetings of First Ladies. I mean, we don't have that many classical format meetings when we can communicate like two to two, like president and first lady versus another president and first lady. Of course, this is not informal. You cannot communicate about personal topics. We have little time to communicate as normal human beings, while the format of the summit makes it possible for us. So we can talk about anything. I can feel solidarity from them as individuals. I can feel how they try to understand me. And I understand that it is very hard to be in the other person's shoes, so to say, and feel that 100% experience that, unless you experience that situation. But we are as close as it is possible. We have lots of joint projects helping Ukrainians. They initiate those projects. Sometimes I just to have to say yes, like let's do that together.
And also, you sent a letter with your husband to Melania Trump. So it was useful to have that as a back channel that you can communicate directly and thank her. Is that something that is a useful diplomatic tool in this conflict?
I believe that in our context, we need to use all the tools that are available. This is classic diplomatic tools, and the classic diplomacy. I try to make use of it because we need advocacy and we need to engage as many people as possible to to repatriate, to bring back Ukrainian children. That's the topic that I try to discuss with the First Lady and Melania Trump. And I hope that as soon as possible, we will be able to discuss that not by exchanging letters, but in some other format.
The issue of the Ukrainian children who have been abducted to Russia is one of the most shocking war crimes of this whole conflict. Tell me about your involvement with it, the people you've talked to. Do you meet with the mothers, for example?
This is one of the most horrible topics in the context of the war, and it frightens me as a mother. I can hardly imagine how it may be feeling knowing that your child is elsewhere, somewhere you cannot find them. So, in my possession, my role, I try to talk to those who are ready to listen to everyone about that. I've had a lot of meetings. I wouldn't say that we are very successful there because to address this issue, we need to act fast. Unfortunately, time is running, and those children who've been there for 3 years in the territory of the aggressor country, for 3 years, they have been outside of Ukraine. They are far from the Ukrainian context. We know that they are retrained, they are reoriented, there is indoctrination happening, and they also have this so-called military patriotic training in Russia. Time is passing, and this is not for the benefit of the mental health of those children who are there now. Ukraine is making steps that we're supposed to undertake. We have organizations set up like Frank is back, Ukraine, the coalition to bring back children. The UK, by the way, is actively participating both at the political level. Lots of experts join in trying to develop this action plan, what we need to do, this roadmap, what we need to do to put pressure on Russia to at least have information about the kids, to bring back those kids. But this has lasted for a while, for a long period of time, and unfortunately, I don't yet see very productive solutions. That's very challenging. Until they don't want to share information, we are going to go on like this, like bringing back one child or a couple of children or a dozen of children. But each time this is dramatic, this is a hard story. This is the policy that is not yet settled and efficient. So, unfortunately, so far it has been working slow. I hope that in the near future we will have meetings at the highest level. I know about some plans, and I do wish to hope that we will see and hear some about some progress, some steps that will bring us closer to the objective. I have met the children and their parents, their families, those who I can meet, because every child who comes back from there undergoes the required adaptation process and psychological counseling, and only when they are ready to meet wider audience, it's possible to talk to them. And those are mostly teenagers, those who can be talked to, or kind of grown-up people who can react in a balanced way to various questions and decide whether they want to speak. And I have talked to many grandmothers. Unfortunately, it happens so that often grandmothers look for those grandchildren because some children were separated from their moms, from their parents in the process of filtration when they tried to leave the hostilities area. For example, I know a boy, the grandmother found him and he was brought back, but he is still waiting for his mother, from whom he was separated during filtration. Russians took her somewhere and he doesn't know what happened to her. So all of them need help. All of them need further rehabilitation, social support. And obviously, these are people from temporarily occupied territories or from the territories where there are hostilities. So they need housing, they need some school arrangements. And this comprehensive policy is being implemented in Ukraine, and we have state public organizations that deal with socializing, integrating these children and helping their families.
This is obviously a cause that's incredibly close to your heart as a mother. And as a mother myself, I find it profoundly shocking. I mean, it has resonance of Stalin, the Nazis. It is a truly despicable thing. And even in the few days I've been here talking to ordinary Ukrainian people about things they've been through, I found it very upsetting. And you have to do this every day. You have to hear the stories of children or the stories of amputees. Or how do you process it every day?
Frankly speaking, sometimes I do need some emotional time off because one cannot keep speaking and thinking only about that. That's emotionally demanding. And sometimes I do need to be distracted with something positive. On the other hand, that's not possible, not quite possible. We are living in these circumstances. This is about our people. This is our life. Unfortunately, this is our normality with all the casualties and mutilated, traumatized people, those waiting. For example, we have those happy moments when people come back from hostility, captivity, prisoners of war, civilians. And we see the videos where people wait for them and buses come and their families wait for the prisoners of war and they look for them in the crowd. This is very profound emotions. And I believe that all of us on those days when that happens, we just look at those people and I can hardly imagine what horrible things they experienced while waiting for the dear ones to come back. And there are so many human tragedies that you can hardly be distracted. I mean, you try to be distracted from one thing, but you look aside and there is something horrible because this is the war. And for everyone who is happy to live outside of the context of the war, in the war, there is nothing good, nothing beautiful, no romanticism or, patriotic romanticism as you may see in a movie. This is about pain and tears, heroism of our defenders who we hope will come back, and we're so grateful to them. But everyone wants that to stop. No one in this country wants the war to go on.
You said sometimes you do need distraction. What is helpful?
Not for a long time, though, but yeah, for a couple of hours, you can be distracted with a good book or a movie. But anyway, you come back to reality. You cannot escape the reality, unfortunately.
Yes. Yes, but it's very important that for you to stay strong and be able to internalize all these difficult things that are coming your way. So, yeah, do you have little things that you do to make yourself strong? Because it's important. I don't think it's a trivial thing. I think everybody in a circumstance like yours has the right to sort of do what you need to do. So I just wondered how you do this.
Absolutely, some trivial things. I believe that in the first weeks of the war, I believe everybody realized how the routine chores, things, how they help you, because that helps go back to something normal. Even doing dishes, cleaning the house, that helped to feel reassured. In the first months, kids studied online exclusively, and then when the decision was made that where it was possible children could go back to school, that was made it much easier for everyone. In September, children went back to schools, and for them that's also about normalcy, about normal life, going to schools. They go back to normal life, at least for that period of time. Normal things to do, routines, bring back to reality. And also, there are rituals. People have those individual rituals. And we have the Ukrainian mental health program where we recommend some breathing exercises, exercises to sleep better. Sleeping is the topic, by the way, that for Ukrainians it's very relevant because we are sleep deprived because of this nightly alerts, and then everybody has to go back to offices to work, and they are no longer that efficient. So people strive to keep going, and that is why we try to look for some activities, some rules how to sleep better. I know that many Ukrainians, when they know about looming raid alerts, strikes, they immediately go to the shelters. They just take their things that they need to sleep at night, not to wake up. So they just, on the eve of that, go elsewhere to sleep there throughout the night because in the morning you have to go back to work. What helps me as well is some physical workout, and just ordinary workout. And when I don't do that, I do feel more exhausted than when I have the opportunity to work out a little bit. So these are the normal things, and when I do that, I feel better than without them.
Do you have a personal trainer? Do you have a little gym, or do you run, or what sort of thing do you do?
I have a small fitness corner with orbit track at home. I can do some cardio workout exercises and some weightlifting, light weightlifting exercises. And that's very helpful. That helps me a lot.
Now, the theme of the fifth summit was education, and the education of children in Ukraine has been very disrupted. Tell me about some of the things that your initiatives um, to to help children stay in education in Ukraine.
We try to help as many children as possible study offline. And experience of COVID was very helpful there because we have quite extensive opportunities for online education, but we do see educational losses and some socialization context that is undermined. So we want as many children as possible to go back to schools. And there are several options. Not everywhere it is possible to pursue studying because it may be unsafe along the front line where it is very close. I mean, the time required for a missile to come may be minimal there, and then children would never have time to go down to the shelter. So there, unfortunately, they can only study online. Otherwise, we consider a hybrid format. We have a lot of schools that are overcrowded because there are a lot of internally displaced people in the country. Kids go to schools, and shelters not always can fit in all the children, so they have to study in shifts, like 2 days offline and 3 days online, and then they swap. And in perfect situation, schools have their sufficient shelter space, and then children just study offline. So with the foundation, we try to create these comfortable shelters at schools. Last year, we managed to complete 17 sites like that, and next year we plan at least 50. And hopefully, after we complete this project, they will no longer be that needed. But when we build the shelters, they have double purpose. So it will be possible to place their hobby groups, activity clubs, so that children could further on attend those places to do that. Second contribution, we try to provide gadgets for teachers and school children. 65,000 gadgets have been distributed so far in the recent 2.5 years. And another project related to education, not so directly related to the war, but I believe that access to education is a global challenge. And the main problem in Ukraine is obviously the war, but we also have other challenges. When children undergo long-term treatment in hospitals, inpatient treatment, they also must have access to education in any possible or convenient format. So we have this project, School of Superheroes, and the foundation contributes to establishing new sites like that. These are sites within hospitals where children can study, come for lessons, studies, or teachers visit them in the wards. And that gives them inspiration to go back to studies afterwards. And that also has therapeutic effect. As doctors say, children recover better, they are in better moods, they see not only those medical devices or walls of the ward, but also something bright and interesting experiments and so on and so forth. These are the three projects that we are implementing to support education in our country.
And also, you have your own children to think about, and they've been under a lot of pressure during this conflict too. How do you keep them motivated to study? How have you kept them? How have you kept them strong during the last 3.5 years?
I believe that there's maybe some exercises, but I don't use those, some specific special approaches. So I never sit down thinking, how am I going to support my children in these challenging and difficult times? Happily, my kids can go to school and to a university, see their peers on the daily basis. They're happy that they can communicate and be with their friends. And obviously, that while we are studying, while our children are studying, we believe in the future, because otherwise, why study if you are not planning your life ahead that would be happy and helpful in the future? Happily, my children are not longer that young where maybe I would need some special approach. I can talk to them as adults, and that's what I do. They are almost mature, grown up. Unfortunately, I would say. Maybe, well, definitely they could be more confident or relaxed without the war, but well, these are the circumstances that we have to consider. We are together, and that gives me the strength and inspiration and the hope that sooner or later everything will be fine.
Have you been surprised by their resilience?
Not really. I wouldn't say that they are the most resilient children that I have seen, because I've seen such, heroic deeds all around, and some committed by children. Sometimes that surprises me, because you would not even expect that from grown ups, what Ukrainian children can do. I believe that under current circumstances, this is just normal adaptation, survival.
What people are interested in many ways is how you manage to maintain a relationship with a husband who is in such a prominent position, who you barely, I don't know whether you can see him very often. I just wonder how you support each other through this. Do you try to snatch small amounts of time when you can? Do you set aside a certain time when you see each other? How do you sort of maintain?
Well, we spend together as much time as possible, and that's little time, you're right, because this is not the best time for any family. I would like to see him more often, but I don't even know how we support each other. I believe that we can learn some lessons afterwards when we can feel relieved and then compare our normal state and the state during the war, because I'm not quite sure that we are in a normal state, all of us now.
І вирій подій не дає нам
We have this adrenaline and we cannot stop and think. So we won't be able before the end of the war to consider that and make some
So you will
conclusions.
evaluate it all at the end of the war. That's an interesting perspective. I wanted to move on to what can British people do to show their solidarity with Ukraine? I feel that the vast majority of our population stands with you, and I have personal friends who have Ukrainians living in their houses for several years. There are Ukrainians in London that I meet all the time, and I just wondered, but what else can we do to help to keep the war in our minds and to help the people of Ukraine?
Well, I need to say words of thank you, because we do feel your support and your help, both literally to refugees and politically at the political level. We perceive the support from the UK, and we're so sincerely grateful for that. I believe that we need to speak more about those things that we have just discussed with you. For example, I know that on average, globally, people do not know much about abducted Ukrainian children. In private conversations, I met people who were surprised that I believe this aspect is not covered enough. So I'm grateful to you that today we have touched upon this issue, and I hope that your audience will also find out more about that. And if necessary, we are ready to provide more detailed information about how this abduction happened and what we are trying to do. The UK is an active member of the coalition for repatriation of Ukrainian children, and we are grateful for that, but we need to enhance our efforts. We need to be more insistent in order to resolve this very painful issue. And we ask all the partners and the UK not to forget about sanctions. Sanctions work slowly. Unfortunately, so far, they have not had that powerful effect as we hope, but one day it will work. And we must make sure that Russia does not have economic opportunities to go on with the war, because unfortunately, otherwise, they will always aspire to continue the warfare. So they must lose any motivation or wish to expand further. So it's important not to forget about the sanctions, not to make it possible for them to circumvent the functions and find loopholes. Because so far, unfortunately, this is what is happening. I was negatively impressed with the recent events when Anna Netrebko was again invited to the Royal Opera to perform there. I know that a lot of representatives of the cultural elite, artistic elite, and politicians, many people spoke against that decision, but that happened no matter what. Let me remind us that, well, we know that people's health depends not only on physical or mental health, everything works together, all these elements. Same about the war. There is physical war at the front line and the kind of mental war that is waged globally. And the experts to measure the index of impact of this kind of soft power is in the UK. You have this company, Brand Finance, that measures soft power index of countries on an annual basis. This is about the level of popularity of recognition of countries in various aspects, and cultural diplomacy plays a very important role shaping global image of a country. A country may lose impact somewhere, but gain a lot via sports diplomacy, even culinary diplomacy, and cultural diplomacy as well. When people see a great performer with beautiful voice, that makes them think like, well, maybe the country that brought up such a beautiful singer is not that bad. Let's have another perspective there. And they invest a lot of efforts into that. That's politics as well. We need to keep that in mind. There, where there have been a lot of scandals or manipulations before, on the eve, and during the Olympic Games in Paris, where eventually Russian sports persons were not admitted. And I believe we were lucky there because we don't know how it would develop further if they were allowed to compete. And here also they gain their scene to promote their culture. That makes the culture stronger. Until now, this legend of the Russian ballet is popular globally, even though to a great extent that's Ukrainian, about the Ukrainian portion of that ballet. But it still works. Cultural expansion works. And unfortunately, we still let it happen.
На жаль, щоб вона продовжувалася.
Do you feel betrayed that the Royal Opera House allowed that Russian singer to perform? Do you feel betrayed by the people who permitted it?
I don't see that as betrayal, but I feel sad about it. I don't think that this was made somehow intentional or on purpose, but unfortunately, these are the priorities. I mean, life of Ukrainians on that scale somehow turned out to weigh less than some other aspects when the decision was being made. And that's sad because we see other examples. We see Metropolitan Opera in New York, and Peter helped the leader of that. In the first months of full-scale invasion, stopped any cooperation with Netrepka. And they are in the process of litigations. They still try to sort it out. Of course, they incurred some financial losses, but they did that because that's principle. We cannot expect that everyone will be ready to stand like hand in hand with us, but we do not take offenses if that doesn't happen.
Before this interview, I was looking at your Instagram page and all the pictures of the summit. But also, I noted that the picture that is your biography picture is you and your husband quite a long time ago now, and you look so fresh-faced, and there's no care in the world in your hair, in your faces. How do you look back at those people that in that picture, and do you think how has the war changed you and your husband as people?
Again, we can only learn those lessons after the war, when we will be able to look back at our life before and after the war and compare these two periods. Unfortunately, we have not changed for the better, the both of us, I guess. I wouldn't like to. I mean, resilience is good. We have learned to be resilient and to be stronger, I guess. However, I don't think that I ever dreamt of learning this lesson, this resilience. What I dream about, what I really miss, what I have not felt for a long period of time, that's the state where there is no anxiety or worries or perception of some looming danger or some emotional burden. I believe last time it was before 2014 when we could breathe freely and were so happy. Afterwards, Unfortunately, I can hardly recall any moments like that because always in the background there is this heaviness, this no matter how happy you are now or elevated, um, you will never be happy 100% while the war is ongoing.
And it strikes me that you are not somebody who wanted to be in the center of attention before all this happened. You were somebody who didn't like public speaking. You were somebody who'd rather be in the background. But now you have grown into this role and you are a world figure. Does this kind of amaze you a little bit that you've managed to, or is it just anybody would have been able to do it because the circumstances are so enormous?
I don't know. I remember my impressions with my first public speeches, which was so stressful. I felt so bad that was not even sure that I could do that again. And comparing my state, my feelings now it is much easier. I feel much more confident. But that's due to repetitions, repeating again and again. So when you keep doing something for a long period of time, when you do some exercise again and again, it makes it easier, of course. And I don't think that I have somehow changed inside, and now I like being in the spotlight. No, but I have learned the skill. I believe I perceive that as part of my job, so I try to learn it, and I started to learn something.
So the final question I'd like to ask you, and I'm maybe quite hard to answer, but I was talking to some women about the first thing they would do when the war is over, and one of them said, "I ring my mother." Another said, "I've got this bottle of wine from an area of occupied Ukraine that I'm going to open and we're going to drink." And I wondered if you can have those hopes, if you can have those things in your head that you would do once it's over.
Once I already answered a similar question. I have always had a ritual that calmed me down in peaceful times. I really like driving, just going somewhere all alone in my car. Now I don't have this opportunity to drive or to be all alone there. So I would really like to go back to driving, just going somewhere without any particular purpose, just going to the suburbs, to the country, maybe even switch off my phone. It means that no one is in danger and everybody can cope without me for an hour or so. And no one is concerned about where I am. I can feel free. I don't. I'm not sure that I have not lost my driving skills. Hopefully not over these years. But that's my dream, and maybe, well, I want to do that again one day.
When's the last time you drove?
It was not February, maybe November 2022, maybe early.
That's a long time. Maybe you need a refresher course.
Maybe. Because, by the way, I often have this dream where I am driving and I have a problem with my brake system. I cannot stop. And I try to
Right.
resolve that somehow. But eventually, everything is okay. I never crash or whatever. Somehow, I manage magically to stop where I need to stop. But this feeling that I do not manage the car as I should, sometimes it is scary, feels scary in the dream. I believe it is something from my unconscious where I now need to control everything, and if I don't have that, that's bad.
Yes. That's like a metaphor for your life, isn't it?
Maybe, but I understand that psychologically that's not very adequate way to live because you need to let go of some things, but maybe now I'm not yet ready.
Well, thank you. I'm so grateful for this interview, and it was so lovely to meet you and to come here. and have an insight into your life, because we all stand by you, and we feel in our hearts everything that the Ukrainian people is suffering.
Thank you so much. Really feel that you're interested, and it is very great pleasure to answer your questions.
Oh, well, thank you very
so
much.
much.